The forest is already talking about you. You don't have to worry about being alone in the woods anymore. That problem is solved. The trees have been watching you the whole time, not in a poetic way, not as a metaphor. Scientists have started wiring forests to machines, and the quiet background scenery we grew up with is suddenly behaving like an active, responsive system that notices what happens around it and reacts. The forest isn't a backdrop, it's a presence. It all began to make sense to me the first time I walked a narrow trail and actually paid attention. The soil felt soft under my shoes, spongy, like I was stepping on old lungs. Branches arched overhead like ribs, knitting together into a crooked ceiling that swallowed the sky. No birds, just the low creak of trunks shifting, the almost breathing rustle of leaves rubbing against each other. The kind of quiet that presses on your eardrums until you mistake it for sleep. I told myself there was nothing strange about it. Just wind, just plants. Every rational explanation lined up like a neat little wall between me and the rising fear in my chest. But under every step, under that damp layer of needles and rot, something else was listening. Threaded through the soil, mycorrhizal fungi wrap around and pierce roots, turning separate trees into one tangled body. People call it the wood wide web. It's less cute when you picture it. Pale filaments like exposed nerve fibers, white wiring spreading in all directions, plugging one trunk into another. Through those threads, carbon and nitrogen slide from tree to tree in the dark, along with electrical pulses and chemical warnings. You cut one big hub tree, and machines can pick up stress ripples in others that were never touched, as if the blow landed on all of them at once. The first time researchers really listened, they didn't hear sound. They watched numbers jump. They hooked trees to gas analyzers and sensors and then wounded them. Not with rage, with controlled clinical cuts. The response was immediate. Volatile chemicals poured into the air, invisible and thick, like a silent scream spreading through the canopy. Nearby trees caught that chemical whisper and changed. Tiny pores on their leaves tightened. Internal chemistry shifted. They started pumping toxins into their own tissues, like a neighborhood locking its doors after hearing a gunshot in the next street over. Standing in the middle of that, the forest doesn't feel open anymore. It feels like a single, suffocating room where you can't see the walls, but you can feel the eyes. When you snap a branch, when you carve your initials into bark, you're not hurting an object. You're pushing on a shared nervous system. You're sending a signal. And if the forest can warn, remember, and respond, then what else can it decide to do with everything it now knows about you? Mother trees, memory, and the forest's long, slow grudge. It all began to feel personal when I learned about the ones in charge. They call them mother trees. Old giants with crowns that scrape the light and roots that sink like anchors into the dark. Under the soil, they aren't just standing, they're reaching. Thick, gnarled roots fused with fungal threads, plugged into dozens, sometimes hundreds of younger trunks. They sit there like heavy, patient lungs beneath the forest floor, slowly pulling in information, slowly pushing out resources. When drought comes, when the air turns thin and the soil goes dry and cold, they decide who gets to breathe. Carbon, nitrogen, water pulled in through their own needles, then rerouted. This one gets fed, that one gets starved. The forest looks quiet, but allocation is a kind of sentence. Scientists tried to make it sterile, to strip out the myth. Potted saplings in plastic tubs, fluorescent lights humming like a bad dream. No birds, no wind, no moss. Just soil, roots, and a manufactured web of fungus. They shaded one seedling until it was almost nothing, its leaves limp, its tiny stem trembling on the edge of collapse. The one beside it was bathed in light. The sensors didn't care about poetry. They just recorded numbers as carbon flowed, against every rational explanation, from the strong to the weak. The well-lit sapling bled sugar through the fungal threads into the starving one, as if some quiet voice in the dark had whispered, "Keep this one." In that blank, humming room, the building itself seemed to hold its breath. Then you step back into the real forest and realize that same exchange is happening under every park, every backyard tree line, every empty patch of green you drive past without looking. Under the picnic table, behind the strip mall, beneath the one tree outside your apartment that you think is alone. Mother trees don't give equally. That's the part that clings to me. Experiments tracing labeled carbon show they send more to their own seedlings, even when those seedlings are small, shaded, objectively less efficient. They also favor neighbors in distress over unrelated healthy trunks. It's like a hospital ward where the head nurse walks the aisles with the last oxygen tank. She knows exactly which bed is yours, even if she's never seen your face, and she can choose to walk past you. Trees remember too. After a brutal drought, they change. Roots push deeper. Stomata. The tiny mouths on their leaves clamp shut faster the next time the air dries out. Their whole body rewrites its thresholds for risk, for thirst, for sun. Slow vegetative PTSD, an imprint of suffering that never really leaves. They behave as if they remember what hurt them, and they brace for it to come back. So you have recognition, preference, memory. Decades-long adjustments that outlive the person who swung the axe. The forest begins to look less like scenery and more like a mind spread thin over acres of wood and soil. And if that mind can recognize kin, hold a grudge of thirst, and decide who gets to live a little longer, what happens when we don't just snap a branch, but carve a road straight through its body, or leave one lone survivor standing in a parking lot, its roots still reaching for voices that are suddenly, violently gone? When that quiet is forced on it, I wonder whose body ends up moving on its own, mine or the forest's. When the network breaks, fragmented forests and phantom limbs. We've already done the worst thing you can do to a mind. We've taken it apart in pieces and scattered them. It all began with clear cuts and survey flags, with maps that treated a forest like a block of text you could erase in neat, straight lines. On paper, it was just habitat loss, a percentage shaved off the top. But on the ground, under the soil, those lines cut straight through the wood wide web. Mycorrhizal threads that once carried carbon, water, and warning whispers from mother trees to seedlings were sliced and left hanging in the dark, like nerves exposed to the air. I walk through one of those fragments now, a strip of trees along a highway. The trunks stand in a tight, nervous row, their bark blasted by wind and exhaust. The air is a constant rush of engines instead of leaves. Under the asphalt, fungal filaments end in blunt, frayed tips. They reach the edge of the road and then, nothing. No answering pulse, no return signal. Scientists have watched what happens when a dominant hub tree is cut. The chainsaw only bites into one trunk, but connected neighbors flinch. Their growth slows, their chemistry warps. Defense compounds misfire. They become easier prey. It's like cutting a nerve cluster in a brain and watching distant muscles twitch and weaken, even though the knife never touched them. Or like deleting the admin from a group chat so suddenly that every remaining message arrives out of order, half-finished, addressed to someone who isn't there. In a continuous forest, a mother Douglas fir will send extra carbon to its shaded seedlings, even to other species, even to a stranger in distress. In a fragmented one, that same tree can still be wired to give, to warn, to remember drought and share the lesson. But when the network is shattered, those impulses have nowhere to go. The tree evolved to live in a murmuring crowd and now stands in chemical silence, its roots still shaped like hands reaching for other hands. That's where the horror really settles in for me. Phantom limb forests. The remaining trees still behave as if the body is intact. They push sugars into roots that once fed neighbors. They release distress volatiles into wind that now just tears past, thinning over open fields and parking lots. The soil under them is a dead phone line, but the calls keep going out. I sat bolt upright one night with that image stuck in my head. An oak at the edge of a mall, quietly pouring carbon into severed fungal threads, like a person talking through a wall to someone who moved out years ago. The forest keeps rehearsing conversations with ghosts. It keeps sending warnings into a void. And then the pattern interrupt hits me. What if we're not the audience at all? What if, from the forest's point of view, we're just the thing that walked into its broken nervous system with blades and fire and never stopped? A distributed, slow brain once stretched for miles. Now it's reduced to scattered, confused fragments watching us pass between them. The building itself seemed to hold its breath the first time I realized that when I step between those trees, I'm walking through the ruins of someone else's mind. I can pretend it feels nothing. I can pile up every rational explanation, call it chemistry and chance. But my body felt like it was moving on its own the next time I stood under a lone street tree and noticed the way its leaves shivered when I exhaled. Because there's one channel we can't pave over. One last line the forest can still use. Our lungs, our blood, the air in the room we think is only ours. And it has already started whispering there. Breathing with a stranger, your next move in a living world. So here's what that whisper in the room really means. You exhale. The nearest tree inhales. The tree exhales. You inhale. Simple rhythm, back and forth. Not poetry, chemistry. Some of the carbon you're pushing out right now will slide into a leaf, into a ring of wood, into a root tip days from now. Some fraction of the air in your chest tonight was pressed through stomata last week, held inside a trunk you walked past without seeing. It all began to feel wrong once I understood that. The wood-wide web, the mother trees feeding their kin, the chemical warnings hanging in the cold air after an attack, the way scarred bark holds the memory of drought the way your nerves hold the memory of pain. Call it a slow, distributed intelligence. Or don't, it doesn't matter. The forest still senses, still decides who eats, who waits, who withers. So what are we doing when we scrape it flat for a parking lot and leave one decorative maple in the median, ringed in concrete and exhaust? I walk past those trees now and I sat bolt upright inside because every rational explanation says survivor, but it feels closer to hostage. The network cut away. The fungal thread severed under the asphalt, and the crown still moving, still breathing for us, because it has no other choice. Here's the part you can't hand off to anyone else. Pick one tree you see all the time, the one outside your window or by the bus stop, or leaning over the cracked wall at the edge of the lot. Learn its name. Watch when it buds, when it drops. Imagine the invisible threads groping under the sidewalk, searching for a voice it can still hear. Then next time you step into a forest and the quiet falls heavy and cold, don't ask, is anyone here? Ask, what have they already heard about me? And listen to what answers in your breath.